Hello everyone, I'm Vivi and welcome to another Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart video. So about the topic of multiplayer in Ratchet & Clank. Shall we expect multiplayer in Rift Apart, is what I mean to say. Considering the fact Insomniac Games calls this a full-length game according to their Twitter, I mean, the way they describe Rift Apart right now, it is debatable. In a sense where, if we look at a crack in time, it's the last full-fledged Ratchet & Clank game you can find, which released back in 2009. Now that game didn't have multiplayer, so that's what I mean when saying debatable. Although they call a game full-fledged or full-length, we can't always expect the game to have multiplayer just because of that. If you've followed me for a while, I've always said that I'm worried that, say, multiplayer would ruin the flow and balance of development. Meaning, if they spend time working on the multiplayer aspect of the game, then time needed for a single player or campaign, it will suffer as a result. But then little ol' VV thought deeper on the matter. Insomniac Games is not like before. What I mean to say? They've expanded a lot, especially ever since they got acquired by Sony. They've even revamped their studio in Burbank, where they developed pretty much all the PlayStation 2 games of Ratchet & Clank. Everything post the crack in time happened in North Carolina, which opened its doors back in January 2009. So right now we have two studios at Insomniac Games. We can't forget that fact. However, the bigger the company gets, the more they broaden their horizon, aka they want to dive into different genres. Although they truly hold Ratchet & Clank close to their hearts, the studio also brought us other games, we can't forget about that. Now this video ain't about the history of Insomniac Games, what they've produced and all. The point is, with a bigger studio and a bigger number of people now, is it realistic to expect Rift Apart, for example, to have multiplayer? Before I proceed, let me just bring up multiplayer from the actual franchise, its history a bit. Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal is the first game that introduced us to multiplayer, local and split screen. Those were the days. The multiplayer in Up Your Arsenal was separate, meaning it wasn't co-op gameplay. You know, you and your friend playing through the story. Nope. That happened in Deadlocked, or Gladiator depending on your region. Not only did this game have cooperative gameplay for campaign, which I'm still mad about the fact that the remaster, which came free with full frontal assault, was a glitchy mess when playing co-op. I mean, it sucks. I really wish Deadlock were to get remastered again and fixed up, you know. But the point is, Deadlocked had a traditional local split screen as well. Sadly, the servers met their end on February 15th, 2018. The team thanked everyone for playing, and that was the moment we all sobbed on our beds. After a crack in time, we enter what we call the experimental phase of Ratchet & Clank, starting with All for One, which gave us access to local and online cooperative gameplay for story. All for One allowed you to play with up to 4 players. Then we have Full Frontal Assault or Q-Force depending on your region, whether you're NTSC or PAL. The game's about tower defense. You can play online competitively up to 4 players, and campaign locally and online, 2 players. And yeah, that's about it for multiplayer when it comes to the Ratchet & Clank series. With Rift Apart looking all glorious and extravaganzas, will multiplayer appear? If so, how would it even function? That's the important question we ask ourselves. Should we expect cooperative gameplay for campaign? Say you unlock Lombax Girl, whatever her name is, as a skin as you complete the main story. I mean, it sounds cool when you think about it, but the nature of Rift Apart? It doesn't speak arena. It's not tower defense. So a campaign mode, co-op I mean? I don't know. I wouldn't expect it. I mean, hey, if they come up with campaign co-op, then fine with me. As long as it doesn't stray away from the main aspect of campaign. Because we want good story and good balance. We want the majority of the focus to be on that. Then again, I may be wrong. And I'm simply contradicting myself knowing the fact that I said the team is much bigger now. Multiplayer. In Rift Apart, wild guess would be separate mode. Look at this. Look at how you can use a Rift tether to move from one platform to another. Imagine multiplayer competitive mode, where you can fast travel using a tether. I can already feel players putting a trap before you even enter a rift. Like looking at how these rifts activate. You get a prompt, a crack appears on screen, and you use your gadget to move to a different platform. I can already imagine you sneaky little devils just putting a mine on that crack. I mean, if we have no other choice but to use a rift tether, I mean, boom, we're gonna lose health. I can already feel that. All I'm saying is, there's a slight chance we could see multiplayer in the future for Rift Apart. Example, Ghost of Tsushima, which released on July 17th recently. It's getting free DLC in fall 2020, giving players the chance to experience cooperative gameplay. Groups of 2 or 4 players you can pair up and tackle story missions, or even play a mode of 4 players going through survival-based gameplay. This is what Sucker Punch stated regarding this upcoming DLC. With 2 players in Ghost of Tsushima Legends, you'll be able to play a series of co-op story missions that escalate in difficulty, building on the foundation of combat from the single-player campaign, but with new magical twists that often require careful synchronization with your partner. With 4 players, you'll be able to take on wave-based survival missions, fighting groups of the toughest enemies Tsushima has to offer, including new Oni enemies with supernatural abilities. Sucker Punch also states that later in the future, after the launch of Legends, there will be a 4-player raid mode, where you and your pals will go to a different realm to face a tough boss. Yep, like I said, this DLC is slated to release in fall 2020. Saying as how another studio owned by Sony, Sucker Punch, a first-party studio basically, planning to release DLC this upcoming fall. Well, imagine Ratchet Clank. What's so different about it? It's a vital IP after all, completely owned by Sony. Why would Sony say no if Insomniac Games wanted to add a multiplayer? Sony would be more than happy to say yes. Especially that Ratchet & Clank right now is considered the family-friendly category of gaming. So imagine Rift Apart having post-launch DLC for free! Emphasis on free, folks. Okay, be careful. I'm not saying paid DLC. Free. Just like Ghost of Tsushima. Be it 2-player story missions. For example, Lombax Girl, out of any other character because she's trending right now. Albeit, it's not really gonna make sense, but you know, it's just gameplay. I mean, mid-gameplay we meet Lombax Girl. Why am I saying mid-gameplay? Because according to Hermanelst, well, he said that we travel to these different dimensions in mid-gameplay. So technically, Lombax Girl also comes mid-gameplay. So if you're playing as her in co-op, I mean, in terms of story, it doesn't really make sense, but it's just for gameplay purposes. Alright, as for 2 players, or up to 4, let's say, competitive, a complete separate mode. So with the day and age of DLC, multiplayer coming out post-launch for Ratchet & Clank, I believe is the best option. The game is still in pre-alpha, meaning early development. Let the team build the campaign first, and then focus on multiplayer second. Rift Apart is a PlayStation 5 title after all. Whether or not it's a launch title, that is completely unknown, but we do know that it is exclusive for the PlayStation 5. With multiplayer, Ratchet & Clank, considering it's a family-friendly title, having multiplayer as a DLC launching after the game releases, it's gonna make the game even more sustainable. And that's something Sony, I take it, wants to see. Heck, Ratchet & Clank is finally getting a Funko line. This was confirmed by Funko themselves. It will release exclusively in the US at GameStop stores, expected to release, well, ship on October 5th, 2020. From experience, me who lives in Canada, Funko exclusives in the US, a couple of months later they pop up at EB Games in Canada. As for other regions, I have no idea, but I would love for the Ratchet & Clank Funkos to release in plenty of regions, because there's so many Ratchet & Clank fans outside of the US. Now looking at this Funko, technically this was due to a lot of fan demand, if I'm not mistaken. Then again, Sony's been really closely working with Funko these days. Ratchet & Clank is not the only line of Funkos from the Sony list of IPs. But, you know, with Funko now closely working with PlayStation, you already know what other Funko I'd like to see. I'm not even gonna say the name, because you know me probably super well. So yeah, with that said folks, this is it for the video. Tell me what you think about Rift Apart potentially having multiplayer. Would you imagine it being a post-launch free DLC, or do you immediately expect the game to have multiplayer on launch? leave your thoughts in the comments section below. And as always, I've been Vivi, and thank you so much for watching.